Greetings, listeners and lurkers. Welcome back to Helping Hands After the Game. I'm January Garnett, and I'm here with my co host.
Lady Lily.
And we had our second session run by Lady Lily a couple days ago. And we are here to give you an update on our continuing saga. How do you feel about DMing the game so far? How do you feel like it's going?
I feel like it's going fantastic. We've had a lot of fun, and that is the biggest part of playing a tabletop role playing game is to have fun. Make sure all the players and the GM, it is very important that the GM is having fun as well. Because as long as they're having fun, then they're able to facilitate fun for the rest of the players. I think that it's going great. The pace is going great. And the only thing that is of concern for me is the fact that my players are new to the system, and that can bring up some anxieties. And with being not just being new to the system, but also the format in which I play my games, because I use a virtual tabletop that's kind of kind of has a learning curve to it. It's once you get in the flow of things and understand how the system works, people seem to warm up to it a lot quicker. But until that time and such that you get the idea of how the whole system works, it can be a little intimidating.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It is a little bit intimidating at first, but I feel like once we get the hang of it, yeah, and it's just like any other game, just getting past that first initial hump of learning the mechanics and, you know, committing it to memory and then being able to strategize and stuff. So yeah,
Hmm.
I think once we can push through that, it'll get even more smoother. But I'm having a blast. Like it's really fun. You guys are great, and the story is it's already interesting. So all right, well let's get into it. Let's see. So the last time we left off the party, um, we were all in the fishery basement, Tamalee's fishery basement, and we were investigating her some robberies and some destruction. She's been losing some inventory, and so we went down there and ended up fighting and defeating some rats. And so this time we picked up post battle, and we're just kind of looking around in this cave that's it's like spider webs everywhere, and we were able to loot a spider sack. Sue, my character, had noticed that there was a spider sack. She decided to investigate it, and we found a finely crafted short sword with an emerald set in the pommel and a much needed lesser health potion because at that point my character was down to 7 HP, and the other two were pretty much okay. So, but pretty much right after we looted that and we did some little bit more investigating. Oh, I think that so we were investigating this cave and there was a barricade made of barrels and some oblong wooden pieces. And so we heard some noises behind it and we decided it's probably a good idea to investigate it because we came here to do an extermination job. So let's finish. So we very quietly picked it apart. I believe Nilro took the lead on that in
That is
picking it
correct.
apart. I can't remember, did he cast a spell
He
to
did
do
not
that?
cast a spell. What he did is he used his thievery skill
That's right.
excuse me. You could use either your thievery or your crafting skill, and he used his crafting skill to deftly take it apart piece by piece very carefully.
I really liked that idea. I thought that was such a unique way to use that skill. So yeah, that was great. I loved that moment. So we did that, cleared the way, and were immediately set upon by some skeletons and a zombie just coming out of some coffins, and there was like a tomb that we noticed in the background. I think there was 3 to 4 skeletons and then one zombie. So it was pretty
Yes.
intense for a second. I believe my character, even though I had the highest initiative, there was still a skeleton that went before me and just ripped me to shreds in that moment. I think that's
Yep.
when I went down to 1 HP. Even though I had used the lesser health potion that I had just found, and it went up to, I think it got me up to like 10 or 13 hit points, but I still went down to 1. That first zombie, or the skeleton, I think rolled a 20.
Yes.
So
And a natural 20 on you for the first roll.
yeah, that was brutal. So then Boaz comes in, just trying to do something, and he uses his magic mirror, and he reflected himself to another location in the midst of some of the other skeletons. And I thought that was a great tactical move, until he got basically downed by those. I think that maybe he got a critical hit, or one of the skeletons got a critical hit on him as well.
Yes.
Boaz went down. Nilro tried his thing. He went down immediately.
Yep, he got one-shotted.
One-shotted, yeah. And so at that point, it was just Sue. My character was at 1 HP, and we were all thinking that this was going to be a TPK. But I tried to figure out what I could do. I cast Figment behind the main zombie, and they ended up being distracted long enough for me to use my last bit of action points to drag Boaz away from the battle, because he was the closest to me. And as I did so, I looked back at Somal, Nilro's familiar black cat, and I asked him if he could help Nilro. Please, is there something that you can do, because we got to run, and this is bad. I had no idea if that was going to help at all. My character felt awful having to leave one of her partner, or her adventure mates, but we had to, because we were just getting one after another down. And it turned out that Somal, there was a really great roll, and Somal not only revived Nilro, but got him back to full health. And so we were able to skitter out of that room while the undead were distracted. And we kind of backtracked a little bit to the cliff that we originally descended to get there. And once we got to the cliff, or the base of the cliff, my character Sue ended up tending to Boaz's wounds, and I brought him to consciousness. I had a really good roll. I think it got him to like 12 hit points, something like that. And then Boaz pulled that mirror out again and used it to reflect himself up to the ledge at the top. And then he stretched himself out, and there was another ledge just below where he was that we climbed up, and then he pulled us up the rest of the way, both Sue and Nero. And so by that point, we were all conscious, but badly beaten and bruised. And so we all agreed that it was time that we get some recovery and rest. So we made our way back up to where Tamily was in her speakeasy, and she recommended that we visit the Dawn Flower Library, which is just a little ways from where the fishery was. They're kind of like, it's this little coastal town. And the Dawn Flower Library is this beautiful dome that has these two other domes on the side. And it was just covered in images of the patron goddess Sarenrae, which I don't think that any of our party members were totally familiar with, but I'm not sure that do we even address that?
I know that Sue rolled to recognize the iconography of the deity and did not.
That's right.
And Nilro, or not Nilro, Nilro didn't roll, but even if he had not, he most likely would recognize the iconography as being from one of the regions that have a reason to know who Sarenrae is.
Yeah.
Sue could possibly have known about Sarenrae coming from where she came, but she doesn't seem to have any information about the deity besides seeing passing iconographies of it, but not going and talking to those people about it.
Right. It was just like another deity to her.
Yeah. To be honest, it was the role that meant that you didn't know much about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so far, as I'm telling the story, did I get all the details right, or am I missing anything?
The only thing that I would add is that to pull the curtain back just a little bit, it had nothing to do with Nilro rolling a natural 20, a
Oh,
critical success on his recovery check. That Somal did what Somal did. Natural 20 just brings you to consciousness. If you,
gotcha.
whether or not you were at dying 2 or dying 3, or what it does is that, to be fair, what it actually does is it reduces your dying condition by 2. If
Oh,
it reduces your dying condition past 1, you still remain unconscious, you just are no longer dying.
I see.
What Somal did was something that Somal was doing all on their own for for reasons unknown.
Okay.
Just this strange cat somehow healed Nilra.
Okay. I like that. I'll have to add that to my notes. Okay, yeah. So Maul is really an interesting character. This my character seems to be very enamored with this strange black cat with moonlight eyes, and I'm looking forward to exploring that. So let's see. So we leave the fishery, broken and wounded. We go to the Dawnflower Library because there's Tamily informs us that not only is it a library, but there's a healer there, and her name is Vandy. So she tells us to look for Vandy. And we get at the Dawnflower Library, and Boaz is just completely enamored with all the books. He doesn't even care that he's hurt and we're there to get healed. He just really just wants to dive into all that information. But they bring us into, I think, a side room to make us comfortable. And they fetch Vandy, who is this cute little halfling female healer. Um, our DM gave us a cute little picture of her to have a visual reference. She's a little blonde uh, halfling with this big smile. She was very sweet and kind and immediately healed us, the entire party, to full health. And she also was very kind enough to offer the services of the library's acolytes to help us research the town and any possible information about the tomb that we just narrowly escaped. So, and I remember at the time, Boaz actually made an observation that there was a giant mansion, and we later find out that it's the mayor's house that's up on this hill that's overlooking the town that we're in, the town of Otari. And it just so happens that that is located kind of in the area where we were underground exploring and ran into this tomb. And so he kind of made that connection. And Sue ended up, she clocked that and she went to ask one of the acolytes to help do some research. And I think I ended up rolling something pretty decent because I got some good information.
Mm-hmm.
And so if so far, have I missed anything up to this point?
The only thing that I would add is that when you told Vandy about the tomb, she was highly interested in it, and that she asked that if you could go back down there after your rest, and she offered healing potions for you and healing equipment and some equipment to help with the undead, which if y'all didn't know, pulling the curtain back a little bit, is already in your party stash.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
and that as soon as you got rid of the danger down there, to bring her down there because she was curious about what you might find.
That is right. I totally forgot about that conversation. I have to add that to my notes at some point. Thank you for reminding me. But
You
that's
are
going to be
welcome.
interesting. That's going to be interesting taking her back down there. Okay. So I'll go into the research that Sue ended up finding out. And please feel free to jump in if there's a detail that I get wrong, because I took this directly from my notes and I'm not sure if I have it all correct. But
Go ahead.
so here we go. So about 500 years ago, there was a group of adventurers called the Rose Guard that came to this town of Otari in search of the sorceress Belcora.
I will correct you there.
Okay.
They came to the area
Okay.
of which Belcora had a fortress of some sorts. The town was not created yet.
Right. They were just searching for her. They had not settled.
Yes.
And so they did end up defeating Belcora, and one of the main heroes, who was also named Otari, he died in the process, and they ended up settling that area and naming that town after him. And so I think it was about 100 years that the town sort of thrived. But eventually, I think the Rose Guard, all the members sort of passed away. And after the final member passed away, the town ended up becoming overrun with kobolds. And so, I'm going to ask you here because I wasn't sure. I feel like there was a missing piece that I forgot because the next thing I have written down is a descendant of one of the original Rose Guard members ended up clearing the kobolds and resettling the town. Was there still members of the Rose Guard there? Were they in like a surrounding area that the kobolds weren't overrunning?
No,
Or did I tell that
when
right?
no, when the city became abandoned, then the kobolds took over and took the parts of the town as their own. You know, just like, oh, it's a free town. And then this member of the family of Rosegard that Miklani, I believe was her name.
Yes.
She came back to the area wanting to retake her ancestral home back and took back the town and then resettled it and built it into a bustling, coastal refuge that had lumber mills, they had fishing, and she began exploiting those resources to build the town back up.
That's right. Now was uh so then we fast forward to the current time a little bit, and I wasn't sure was so the mayor of the town right now is Osif, and he was also a descendant of the Rose Guard. Now, was he a descendant of Makalani
He
or
was,
Otari?
yes, he is the descendant of Makalani, which is the descendant of Asafina, the known as the Huntress, who was a cleric of Erastil.
Okay. And she was the original one of the original members of the Rose Guard, right?
Yes,
Asafari?
Asafina.
Asafina, sorry.
Yes,
Cool. Yeah. So there's some deep lore here in this town. Something interesting going on with the mayor because he's descended also from the Rose Guard. He lives in that house on the hill overlooking the entire town. Um, so the party basically kind of we talked about it and we figured that that's probably somewhere we need to explore and maybe ask some more questions about so that when we do go back to that tomb that we're sort of prepared and have some sort of a heads up to what we're expecting. So then once we're done doing all the research, we decided that it's probably time to find a place to rest for the night, get some food, some drink. And Boaz actually had already purchased or rented a room from a nearby inn, and that inn's name was called Crow's Cast, which I love.
casks.
Cast. Thank you. I thought it was cast. Okay, casks.
Yep, casks, as
All
in a
right.
cask of ale.
Okay, which coincidentally is run by the local a Tengu, which is I think a crow person, and her
Yes.
name is Magaloy. Now Boaz had already familiarized himself with Magaloy, and he sort of decides to presume to know her or be more familiar with her than maybe he is. So the party goes and sits down, and Magaloy comes over to see if she can help us out. And Boaz decides to call her Mags, and she's not quite happy with that because she doesn't really know Boaz very well. But so she tries to playfully get him back, and as we order drinks and something to eat, she brings Boaz, quote unquote, a special drink. He takes a big whiff of it, and he smells something peppery and spicy, and it's very frothy, and we're all kind of just looking at him, and we all know what's coming. And I think that he did too, but he didn't want to look bad in front of Magaloy or us, so he basically took a big drink in front of all of us. And of course, it was very peppery, and he coughs. And Magaloy is kind of chuckling to herself, and I think that she ends up telling him that it's a what was it called?
Goblin pepper water or
Yes,
pepper stout.
yes, goblin pepper stout. And so Sue is kind of just smiling to herself, and she decides to, while Magaloy is still there, she says, "Hey, would you mind bringing us a glass of milk?" And so she goes and gets a glass of milk, and Boaz is kind of still trying to play it off, and he's kind of coughing them to himself. And I can't remember if he took another drink or not. Um,
I do
but
not believe he did.
yeah, I don't think he did either. So then Magaloy comes back with the milk, and because Sue noticed that Boaz was just kind of trying to play it off, she decides to kind of prank him a little bit and just gives the milk to Somal, who ends up immediately drinking it up. Which she ends up chuckling to herself, and hopefully it lands well on Boaz, and she knows that she's not being I hope he knows that she's not being malicious, just playful.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but up until this point, S- Sue had been calling Somal Kitty, or she was saying, "Oh, good Kitty," and Nilro took the opportunity to clarify that Somal does not like to be referred to as Kitty.
Correct.
So I thought that was an interesting tidbit of lore about this interesting, curious creature. There's something more to this feline presenting creature.
Mm. Isn't there?
So yeah. How am I doing so far? Did I miss anything?
No, you haven't missed anything at all.
Okay, great. Okay, so once the party, gets eats their meal and gets rested and kind of has some playful conversation, we decide to retire to the room. There was a choice between taking a really cheap room with maybe one bed, a medium room with two beds, and then there was like the super expensive suite. And I think we went with the medium room that Boaz had, I think, contributed to, but I think also Nilro ended up contributing to a
Yes,
little bit of an
Nilro paid
upgrade.
for it. Yep. Nilro paid a gold, which was actually two silver too much.
Right. He gave a little bit of a tip. So we
Yes.
ended up having this room, but it only had two beds. And Sue's character, she has been used to traveling on the road, and she just immediately went into, okay, well, I'll watch the door and you guys take the beds. But Boaz was not having that because this person had just saved his life and he was not about to let her sleep on the floor. So he very generously offered the bed to her and reminded her that there was no need to really stay on guard because this is a safe place, and he slept here the night before, but it was fine. So and he made sure to tell her that, no, you just saved my life, you've been beat up, you deserve to have a nice rest. So she graciously accepted, and literally as soon as she fell asleep, as soon as her head hit the pillow, she fell asleep. But of course, that means dreams. And Sue is somebody who gets plagued with dreams. And so, and that's where we kind of ended it. I think the DM had hinted that she will explore those dreams in our next session, which was a really tantalizing tidbit for me. And I think that I remember you saying that some of the other members may have had dreams too. So that's going to be
Yes.
interesting.
There's going to be dreams for everyone. Dreams all around.
Awesome. Yeah, that's gonna be. I love the lore stuff. That's my favorite. So, and
Yes,
that's
I am excited.
me too. Me too. And that's where we ended up stopping. It was a good stopping point.
Hmm.
If there's anything that I missed or anything you want to add, any kind of lore or, like you said, pulling the sheet back, let me.
Well, so pulling the sheet back a little bit, the encounter that you went through with those skeletons and that zombie was considered an extreme encounter.
Oh,
So it was
what does
meant
that
to be a
mean?
hard. With Pathfinder 2E, they do still have XP. I just personally run my games by milestones because I would rather level you up when it's appropriate, when you should level up, versus let me make sure that you have enough encounters with enough monsters to give you enough XP to level up.
Yeah.
But there's also an encounter budget that
Mm,
numbers of party members is ha- you ha- give it gives you a number of output of XP that you should be creating that would make a moderate or severe or extreme encounter or trivial encounter. And
okay.
so I do not know the numbers on it, but the every creature has an XP number, and it's based on their creature level versus the party level. And based on the creatures and their creature level versus the party number and the party level, it was an extreme encounter, which means it had much more XP for the encounter versus what would be a moderate or severe encounter for your party based on the party number and the party level. So,
Since we
I
Oh,
was
sorry,
going
go
to
ahead.
say, such as if you have this creature that is the same level at its creature level to party level, that's going to be a severe encounter as well, anyways, because or one or two of those is going to be severe because it's at your level. Usually, you want to have at least one creature level either higher or two creature levels higher than the party, and then maybe a few minions, depending on how many additional people are in the party. And it
I
has
see.
adjustments on it. So if you have a party of four or a party of five, or you add so much to your budget, depending on plus more party members. So I think you get 10 XP or 15 XP per additional party member.
I see.
And then you have this budget to build out an encounter.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
hmm It's
Now
really
when
helpful for GMs that are building encounters themselves.
Yeah, that sounds like a really intuitive way to balance an encounter. Is
It
there
is.
is now because we ran away, did we get any experience? Or is it like a video game where you have to kill the enemy to get the experience?
It, traditionally, you would have to kill the creature or somehow make the creature not hostile so you end the confrontation with the creature in order to get the experience for it. But since we're not playing with experience, then it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Now you do have to complete that area in order to well, to be fair, technically you don't have to complete that area. You just have to reach a certain point in the dungeon after a certain encounter that you solve one way or the other, then
Okay.
you'll level up.
Okay. That's interesting. I like that.
So,
I'm so like excited and wanting to try all these different ideas. I think that now that I think about it, I think that because I've the kind of person that has started several games but never been able to sort of finish a campaign for whatever
mhm,
reason. And so I'm really familiar with that beginning aspect of where you're just weak as shit and you feel like
mhm,
everything is going to kick your ass at any second.
mhm,
And so I've been trying to through every experience that I've had, including this one. I like figuring out like really unique ways of using whatever is at my disposal,
mhm.
in whatever encounter. And yeah, I think I was thrown off. I didn't realize it was going to be an extreme encounter this time, but I think we handled it really well. I mean, one party member down to 1 HP and the other two unconscious, and we were able to escape.
Yeah.
I would consider that a success.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, yeah, that is a success. And so in an adventuring session, you should have at least one extreme, maybe a severe, and a couple moderates.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense for sure. Now, how what's your perspective on just how the characters are interacting with each other?
I think they're interacting really well. I think that there's a little bit on both parts of you and Boaz, and just being a little trepidatious in starting the role play part. But once you get started into it, you do really well, but that's nothing necessarily to say bad against you. That happens to everybody.
Yeah.
Eric has the same problem. That's
Yeah.
why there's a lot that at the beginning when it's like I say scene and stuff, there's a lot of silence because everybody's like, who's gonna talk? What are we gonna say? I don't know what. Uh, uh.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think once you all get into it, you've done a really good job. I'm very proud of Eric because he's playing his character rather authentically. And he's like, I just have to be the weird antisocial me anyways. So
It's
and
so it's so funny that you say that because I feel like Mike and I are doing the same thing without even like trying. Like I think both of us had an idea of how we wanted to play our character, and because the situation itself is new and it's a unfamiliar, and we are both fans of yes anding,
mhm.
so my thing, and he has done it as well. We're just like, well, we'll just take how we're feeling and our awkwardness and just play it, use
Yeah.
it and play it. And that's kind of what I've been and it's like I think that this party is going to be great because we're just three sort of awkward people in this magical world trying to be heroes and figure things out. And I love that. I'm excited about it. And
Yeah,
I
for
was
sure.
I wanted to ask you actually. So one thing that I run into a lot, a roadblock for me, is when I'm playing and let's say we're in an encounter, and it's usually in encounters for me
Mhm.
where I just don't know what to do. Like I freeze and I take
Yeah.
a really, really long time to figure out what I can do and what I can't do. And that
Mhm.
might be because I'm still getting familiar with my character and the
And the
mechanics of the game and
system.
everything, the system.
Yeah.
But yeah, is do you have any advice as somebody who's experienced player and DM when you run into those moments? Is there anything that might help a newer player figure out what
Um
direction to go in?
Something that give let me think. So something that would help is to look into if you want to take a time to go into Foundry and look at some stuff that's in Foundry. There is a lot of options that use your skills that are like actions that you can do, such as the action demoralize. It uses your intimidation skill and you can spend one action to demoralize a creature. And if you succeed, they're frightened. And what
Okay.
frightened does is it reduces all of their d20 rolls
Oh,
and
okay,
their
that's good.
AC by one.
Awesome.
So, something really good in Pathfinder is stacking debuffs. Or like Bon
Okay.
Mo, if you succeed, their will save goes down by 3 for an entire minute. If you or for a round, I think. And if you critically succeed, it goes down by a minute.
Okay.
And so
Okay.
anybody that rolls anything that they need to make a will save on, they have a negative to.
Okay. Okay, that actually really helps me to figure out what to do because I didn't realize the importance or that you even could like stack debuffs, which is like such a good clue for me because that means that I can do things prior to attacking
Yes.
and sort of set things up. And
And
that
then
might be a really good way to approach encounters.
another thing for you to remember, and if we want to put it on your character sheet, we can. And you don't always have to click the button to put it in chat if it doesn't have anything that has an effect or has a what's called a macro. It's written out as a macro or something
Yeah.
that will prompt whatever the item is, the thing that you're putting into chat.
Yeah.
So like, but if it does, then of course you put it in chat so you can use it. But so like demoralize, it does. It has a button in there for you to click to do an intimidation check. And as long as you have the target targeted, it'll automatically roll against their will save and give you a success or failure. Not
Okay.
all of those actions have that. So
I see.
just read the action and see if it has any of that in there. And I can show you what it looks like if you would like.
Okay.
But what you'll do is you'll just say you're doing this action. Like, for instance, there's an action called avert gaze. So, say you come across a creature that will turn you to stone. Then, if you avert your gaze, you automatically get a +2 to your fortitude save against if they use any of their gaze attacks on you to turn you to stone.
I see. Okay.
So there's an action macros, though not all the actions are in there, but a lot of them are, that I can also help you put on your macro bar, your actions bar down at the bottom. That
Okay.
you'll click on that, and then it'll pull up a window that has all different actions that you can take, and it'll have things highlighted that you're proficient in or that you're the best party member to do so.
Oh, that's
And
interesting.
I can show you that as well. Um,
Okay.
and there's a lot of different actions you can take. Of course, there's also the default if you're a caster shield, because that'll give you a +2 to your AC, and that's a single action that you can take. And yeah, sometimes it comes down to you don't want to move and you don't really have any third action, so you can either swing for the wall or you can do nothing. You can uh spend you spend an action to hold a second action. So you spend two actions, but you have one that's kind of a floating action that you can then use as a reaction before your next turn if whatever you're holding an action for you designate happen. So it's like
Uh,
holding your turn in first edition.
Gotcha.
But you
Yeah.
don't hold your entire turn, you hold an action.
Hold an action. Yeah. Okay. That
So
makes sense.
um
Now, do you like to have your players, when they decide to hold an action, do you ask them what action are you holding, or do you let them figure that out in the
yes.
moment? You do. Okay.
I they have to designate an action at the
Yeah.
time of holding the action.
Yeah.
So you have to say like I'm gonna attack if anything comes near me, or I'm gonna attack because you can do a ranged attack and you can go, I'm gonna attack if anybody attacks us and you're not necessarily right directly to them.
Yes.
Or I'm gonna move if they attack or something like that. Or I'm gonna cast shield if they attack, because shield is
Yeah.
a single action.
Yeah.
Uh,
I like doing that because then you can't go back.
yeah.
Like you have to make a decision, and I like
You
that
have
part of it because you have to learn how to make a decision and go with
yep.
it.
And I know secret checks can get frustrating, but it's in this vein of you don't know how good you did unless the GM tells you.
Right. Yeah.
You don't
Yeah.
know what you don't know until the GM tells you what you know.
Right. Yeah, it helps to stay
S-
immersive, I
yeah,
think.
exactly.
Yeah, I love it. I'm having a lots of fun. I'm looking so forward to our next session. And is there any, let's see, before we wrap it up, I'm going to be a stinker player and ask for, is there any kind of hint or tools or anything that you can give me as the DM to help in the next game? And if not, that's okay too.
In the next game, if you intend on going back to the skeletons, you already have holy water, which shouldn't. I'm not sure how much that's gonna help. But I will look into it. Something else you might look into getting is, uh, if they still exist, they should, and you should be able to get them from the church. Would be holy arrows that do holy damage.
Oh, okay.
If anybody has any range, like a crossbow, not crossbow, but and there might be. I would have to look it up to see what items would have the holy trait on them, or how to get the holy trait on it, so that you could do damage against undead. Or
Okay.
vitality. Vitality does damage against undead.
Oh,
So
yes.
like
Okay.
throwing healing potions at something, it's wasting a healing potion, but it could also, with them making a fortitude save, they could also take damage.
Okay.
Let's see. But yeah, I would have to look and see what things, because it's new, what
Yeah.
things do vitality damage. And then
I,
you might go into town and buy some of those items that do vitality damage.
yeah. Okay, that's a good hint. I'll take that. I'll take it all the way to the
Yeah.
all the way to the TPK. I'm kidding.
Yeah. Uh, Vitality damage is good. Vitality damage is gonna be good for you, period.
Okay,
So
good to know.
if any of you are able to take Vitality Lash, I don't know if it's in anybody's spell list, but it is a great spell. I am so thankful I have it.
Okay, that gets good to know too. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Okay, well, that kind of wraps it up. We're coming up in on our time. Thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you, Lily, for being our DM and joining me today. If
Yes, of course.
any of the listeners have any comments or reactions, please feel free to leave it. And hopefully, you'll join us for the next phase in our adventure. We can figure out what's going to happen to our party and if they are able to beat these undead.
Yes, and
Um,
also I'll add, since last time I talked about some of my characters, just in case anybody is curious about any of them and wants to know more, feel free to leave a comment about that, and I might make my own short podcast answering those questions. Just kind of just me answering the questions for you in that format. But if any of you have any of those questions, please feel free to leave them below or ask us on our Twitter, which we now have a Twitter page, or X page or whatever. I refuse to call it X. It's Twitter. It's
yeah,
Twitter.
nobody calls it that anyway.
Fuck X. It's Twitter.
Yeah.
But yeah.
All right, great. Well, until next time, we'll see you then.
Yay! Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. Have a great day, and don't forget to love each other. Bye bye.
Bye.